You may have noticed over the last few videos that I've got a new setup. Now, a lot of people have been asking me why the change, and I figured if you're asking the question about it, I might as well go into the process of how I went from my previous setup to what I'm using now. So let's start with the old setup. The old setup is pretty much the same setup that I've had since I started content creating all the way back in 2022. Actually no, even before that, it was 2021. The company became official in July 2022, but I was using pretty much the same setup even before that, before everything kind of went full speed that it did. And the setup worked for me for a very long time because of one simple thing: portability. Now, a lot of you know my journey between 2022 to present day, and at one point I wasn't even sure where I was going to be recording or if I was going to be recording again. So having the portable setup that I had, my webcam, microphone, a ring light, and recording on Zoom with a generic screenshot background, it worked for the time. It did exactly what it needed to do, and I was really happy for it, because during that time the point was just getting the content out and trying to keep myself sane through very tough times. But over the last couple of years, things have started to settle down just a little bit. There's going to be the usual complications with life, but I managed to get myself in a relatively secure base, aka I have the flat that I'm in part-time, and other things on the horizon. And after I did my first local authority contract and got my first proper paid gig for the media company, I kept swithering about whether or not I was going to invest and try and get the setup looking more professional. Now, I did swither for a long time because there was issues that I wasn't sure if I could tackle, and I'll get to them as I go on. But one thing that was constantly bugging me was the webcam. I was very loyal to that webcam, and it always seems to be a thing with me. If there's loyalty, I'll back you. Same with people, same with tech. And that webcam got me through a lot of videos and a lot of early trial and error, figuring out how to do different things, recording from different setups, even learning basic color grading. Was I an expert on it? No, but at least I was willing to try and fail with that webcam because I knew exactly what to do with those settings. But when we started doing the live streams for Raw as Ginger, that's when I started to notice that I needed to bump up the quality a little bit. And I was swithering about whether to buy the camera or not. I've been burned so many times with, this is a great camera, only to turn out it's actually a load of crap. And I didn't want to waste the money that I'd worked so hard to earn. So I really took my time, did my research, looked at all the different options, and finally, I got the webcam that I'm using now, the Insta360. And if you do a comparison, the quality is a massive step up. Everything is cleaner, more crisp. Only downside, audio syncing is a pain in the hole. There'll be points in this video where you'll watch it and think, Andrew's mouth is moving either a bit slower than the audio or a bit quicker than the audio. And that requires me going into post and adding extra time for trying to get that sorted. But you weigh up a better quality of setup to having to do a couple of tweaks of audio, and I think that's okay. So I tested it out in the setup that I had in my flat and realised one thing. It was crap. And I'm talking about the setup, not the webcam. I couldn't carry on using the generic backdrop that I was using for previous videos because the quality of the webcam exposed how bad the quality of the backgrounds were. So I started thinking more, and I thought, where is the best point in my flat that I could get a more professional looking setup? And I was thinking about channels that I watch in the pro wrestling sphere. Channels like James Romero and Wrestling with Regret, where they have a nice background where they've got lots of pop culture items that fill out the space, make it look a lot more professional. Now, I don't have a lot of pop culture items, and I don't have the option to put up a lot of different hanging units because it's a rented property. But there was one place in the living room that was a good option for me, and that was the fireplace. It's an electric fireplace, so I don't put it on because it burns way too much money. But it has this lovely little shelf built that you see behind you. So I decided this is where my setup needs to be. And I started picking out the little bits of pop culture that you see behind me now. And over the course of time, I built them up to a more balanced shot. These all have importance to me. They're all significant. But I really held back on getting this setup to the way it is right now for one specific reason: lighting. If there was an Achilles heel in my game for content creation, lighting is it. No matter how hard I try, no matter how many times I study, different setups that I try, I always seem to fail. And not just fail like, oh, that's a bit of a hit, try again later. it just always looks crap. You look at when I first started using the 4K webcam, how badly that was lit and how badly it was done. But I didn't know what to do, and I was very scared to ask for help. Because normally when I ask for help, I don't get a lot of positive responses or don't get a lot of constructive responses. But I reached out to someone that I really trust in that sphere, who does videography professionally, graphic design, and knows a lot about lighting for shots, for movies, series, and that is Mark McFarlane from October 15. And if you've been on this channel before, you've seen I've done a couple of projects with him in the past, so I trusted their opinion. And so we went through a lot of different setups, invested in a couple of new lights, and we started experimenting with what lights gave me the right shading and contrast, and we finally settled on the lighting style that I had now. Literally drawing out a diagram on a Starbucks napkin for me to follow precisely, so that I knew exactly where to put my lights, what settings to use, and how to do everything. So Mark really went above and beyond, and me asking for that help was a very big risk for me. So you'll imagine my absolute joy when I sent Mark the photo of how the setup was just before the pop culture items were fully complete, and I got that heart and a well done. That was a huge monkey off my back. Now, why am I doing the video about the setup? It's for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that you don't always need to stick to what's tried and true. Sometimes it is okay to take a risk. Invest in yourself. Invest in what you're doing, because the audience will come if you do that. You look at my channel now, the subscriber count has taken a massive leap because of the collaborations with my Ginger Engine channel. I've done a video on that as well if you want to check it out. And it will also show you the difference, if you go into it, between how my setup used to be and how it is right now. And I've also done it for one final reason, to show that no matter what stage you're at in the content creation game, you're always learning, you're always experimenting, and you have to try and take risks. Because I was afraid for so long to make that investment in a high-spec webcam, the lighting setup, shifting around my entire living room, and creating the setup that I've got right now. But I think the results speak for themselves. I put the work in, had several trials and errors, and I'm pretty content with the setup that I've got now. So let me know in the comments what you think of this new setup. Thank you for watching, and take care.